Hello friends, myself Arbab Khan, Head of Department of Geography, DQ College, Gurgaon. Friends, today we are going to discuss classification of international boundaries, part 2. This particular lecture is part of your BA Part 3 Honours Syllabus, Paper 7, Group D, Unit 3, Political Geography. In this particular lecture, I am going to discuss morphological classification of international boundaries. So we have divided the morphological classification in more or less 5 subheadings. First is physiographic boundaries, mountain boundaries, rivers as boundaries, lakes as boundaries, forest, swamp and deserts are boundaries. So first of all, let us discuss physiographic boundaries. So physiographic boundaries are nothing but these are natural boundaries which are formed by physical barrier and conspicuous some physical barriers which are very conspicuous on landscape and they follow natural features. So they are different from geometric boundaries because they do not follow cultural division. So more or less all those boundaries which are formed by physical barriers come under this classification. Another is mountain boundaries. So mountains are traditionally served as natural barriers and most of the countries follow mountain ranges to divide one country from another, and most of the country follow this mountain ranges as their boundary between two states. However, revolutionary changes in transport and communication and the opening of the sky as a highway have greatly reduced their functions as protective barriers. As we can say, Chinese invasion of Himalaya in 1962. But apart from natural barrier, they pose some difficult problems also, as they do not possess a well-defined crest lines, and even where the crest line exists, they are often divided by transverse valleys. Besides, most mountain ranges consist of several semi-parallel ranges, each with its separate crest line. Therefore, contrary to popular belief, mountain boundary coincide between the crest line and the water divide is seldom found. So mountains can act as international boundary, but there are several problems are also associated with them. Now third is rivers as boundaries. So many of the international boundaries are based on river streams, and the advantage of selecting river as a boundary is that it is clearly marked feature on the map. It is more narrowly defined. It is wide, unfoldable streams offered a barrier to communication, and as such were thought to possess some military value by providing a line of defense against an advancing army. However, they have some problems and disadvantages also, like shifting channels often pose a problem of demarcation, like we can easily say in case of Indian Bangladesh boundary, where Meghna stream and Ganga stream also poses problems of demarcation, which is very problematic in the region of Assam and Bangladesh boundary. And generally, the midstream is defined as the international boundary, and after each flood, the midstream may change its course, transferring the territory of one country to another. And the problem of administration, cross border smuggling, cattle trade, there are also serious case in river boundaries. And most important is infiltration by following river channels. Then boundaries in lakes and straits. So according to the international law, the boundaries in lakes and straits are drawn at equal distance from the base of respective countries from which the territorial sea is measured. Another is forest, swamp, and deserts. So, by their nature, the forests, swamps, and deserts act as cultural divides. Like the Sahara Desert, throughout the history, separated the European dominated culture of the Mediterranean basins from their distinctive African cultures. On the borders of Finland, Russia, Poland, and Lithuania, forests form the boundary. The forest boundaries are much less effective as cultural barriers, and marshes have also served as a basis for drawing boundaries between Belarus and Poland during the two world wars. Uh, we can also discuss and add in this group, that is geometrical boundaries. So there are straight line boundaries following lines of latitude or longitude. For example, the state of Gambia in West Africa has its boundaries fixed by arcs drawn from the center of river Gambia. The straight line boundaries are common in North and South America and Australia. And last classification is maritime international boundaries. So prior to 1958, most of the law of the sea derived from customary law, but subsequently 3 United Nations conferences on the law of the sea have resulted in a series of conventions which have had some success in bringing the oceans within a single body of international law. The most recent is the UNCLOS agreed on 17 December 1922 at Montego Bay, Jamaica, and signed by the majority of maritime states. Although it has still not formally come into force, its provisions are implemented by most of the countries. Here, first is internal water, like all waters, landwards of the baseline from which the territorial sea is measured, such as rivers, lakes, bays, ports, and any waters of the low side. Then territorial sea, that is states exercise total sovereignty over these waters except for the right of innocent passages. They extend out to sea for 12 nautical miles from the baseline unless this impinges on the territorial sea of neighboring states, when compromise has to be agreed. Third is contiguous zones, an area 12 nautical miles beyond the limit of territorial sea, with which states are free to apply customs and other national regulations. Continental Shelf, an area extending 200 nautical miles from the baseline, within which states may claim virtually exclusive rights to the seabed resources. For the fishing purposes, most states now claim and exercise exclusive fishing rights up to 200 nautical miles out to sea from their coast. And then EEZ, that is exclusive economic zone, which is synonymous with continental shelf. So these are the broad classification of international boundaries. Hope you must have been benefited by these 2 lectures.